Buhay pa. Oh no.
Oh no.
Kakasimula lang
Hindi ko rin alam bakit hindi. Ayan, there we go. Live na po tayo. Hi guys, my name is John and this is Level Up Geek Nights. And unfortunately, we had a technical issue last time, but I decided to restart my computer today just to make sure. So, with that being said, we will continue with part 2 on Thunderbolts as we deep dive and learn more about how God is actually involved in the Thunderbolts. Is he? Nakikita ba natin si God doon? Yun ang tanong natin for this evening. And again, with me is our eclectic group of characters.
Wow.
Wow, so eclectic.
Eclectic.
So of course we have our what do you call that? Our blogger, blogger, and content creator, the Geeks.
Hindi naman yan vlogger. Blogger.
Bloggerist. Joke lang.
Our digital content creator.
And of course, our resident cosplayer,
Pokemon Master.
Eri. Hey, Eri.
Hi.
Nani Gaski. We also have our brand ambassador. Wow, brand ambassador. Brand manager.
Brand mistress na lang.
Brand mistress now.
That just sounds like something else.
Admin assistant.
And of course,
we're gonna have to pin down your intro lines. Yes.
And,
We're workshopping.
and of course, we have our COO, child of owner, boss man. Hey, John.
Hello.
So, take it away, John. As our moderator for this evening.
So last time we got cut off because of tech difficulties. Nag-crash yung PC streaming computer, so we weren't able to get back. But we were diving into Thunderbolts. We were discussing what we liked about it, what were the story points and character points that we liked. We were getting into full swing with that actually, and that's when things just crashed. So tonight, we'll just kind of finish off from there. And I think may nag-mention last time, like, okay, these are the things you like. What are the things you didn't like? What are the more problematic or interesting character and or story points, or just things about the movie in general? So that's what we're gonna go into, and of course, we're gonna try to end up with: is there anything here that's useful for us to think about, or is there anything here na may parang practical reflection application or whatnot? Yun.
Well, I'll jump right in and say that the movie was pretty much perfect. No, just kidding. Of course, there's still. Of course, there's still areas for improvement, and I think
Strong words.
one of the things that that I felt a little bit lacking was the character development of the other characters. Although it was presented like an ensemble film, a lot of times it was from the POV of either Yelena or sometimes
Bob.
from Bucky, or sometimes it just felt like I would have wanted to spend a little bit more time with Ghost, for example, or a little bit more time with US Agent, where he has been since the what do you call this? The what series was that? Winter Soldier, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it's like, so that we can get caught up with what they have been doing. And of course, I think the spoiler alert. This is your spoiler alert if we haven't given that yet. And of course, the sudden death of Taskmaster. I'm like, what? That's it? I would have wanted a little bit more depth from those characters to round out the story. No? So parang,
Well, you certainly had character deaths.
Well, that's true. But
Yeah, I agree with John in that, like, as someone who missed a couple of Marvel films, like, that was really problematic to me. Not even just the development, but for me, like, the reintroduction. Like, in a way, that there wasn't much reintroduction to characters. Like, they're just kind of, like, thrown in there, and the film kind of assumes that you already know these characters. So, in a way, it's good for people who consistently follow. You don't get the draggy, like, backstory, whatever. Like, it just gets right to it.
Yeah,
Which
there's
which
that.
probably saves time for the film, makes it so that they're able to develop the points they needed to develop, which is good for that film. It's just for people who aren't like following every single movie like me. It took a little bit of like, wait, who's this again, and why are they important? Like even leaving the film to some extent, I was like, who was this? I had to like look up characters to figure out who they were and what movie they were in, or ask people like, I was like, so this character, they were talking about him like they'd met him before. Where did they meet him before? So it was that, like, for people who weren't religiously following along, there's a little bit of like a delay into like figuring out who these people are, which could be, yeah. Which if I was watching with my parents, for example, I feel like half the movie would have been them asking me, "Who is this?
Who are
Why are
these
they important?" Yeah.
That's true. That is
For
one of the
me,
inherent.
sorry.
That's an inherent weakness in some of the MCU movies because it's such a big thing nowadays that there's always like one or two films that has to be plugged into it or something.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I agree. I did also wish that there was a better development for some of the other characters. See, Ghost, I agree. Ghost would have been nice to have gotten more screen time with. Um, Even if we say that her story is mostly finished because it was coming in from Ant-Man,
Quantumania.
diba? Yeah. But it would have been nice to see at least more of like, okay, we know that she was working stuff, but like, what happened to her after Quantumania? Something like that would have been nice. Because we saw a little bit of that with John Walker. Like we see a glimpse of like, oh, stuff happened to him, and oh, that stuff happened to him. So, but we didn't see even that much for Ghost, which I was hoping we'd see at least that level of um, kind of catch up. Just a few glimpses of like stuff. Like maybe the shame. It would be nice if she had her own shame room. Kung baka, shame room
Agreed.
movie.
Agreed.
So even if it's just like a kind of a glimpse at it or something.
I think not including Taskmaster because she really died too early in the movie. And the Ghost really had the least amount of character development or character backstory the movie.
Yeah.
My issue with Taskmaster is not even just that she died early. It was also she barely had any lines. So it wasn't even like she had like a witty exchange and then she died. It was like she was there and suddenly she was gone. So I felt like
Yeah.
Yeah,
you could
parang
have
it's
given her
really
like
like
a meaningful exchange, like at least like a brief, like memorable encounter.
yeah, or no,
Also,
like even like an intro. Cause I feel like if you're not too familiar with the character, you wouldn't really know who Taskmaster is.
Yeah, I actually didn't
So,
remember her until after she died. I'm like, oh, this is the Black Widow girl.
Hmm.
Yeah, which was
I just know her
different.
from Marvel
It would be
Snap.
nice if she had. See, like yeah, we have different ways of remembering these characters, but yeah,
Yeah. I think for me, as someone who, ano naman, I'm the opposite of Eri. Ako naman, I religiously watch all the Marvel movies. I just don't watch the series too much. Um, okay lang siya. Actually, it's a very solid, I'd say 7.9 for me. Like, I think when we finished the movie, I told Vern na the way that I feel about uh Thunderbolts is the way that I felt about the second Guardians. Na parang visually it's nice. Plot wise, it's okay. Like it gives context to like, like the problem and like something deep seated in like the character. But yeah, parang I don't know, like I think what I would have liked more of sana is a deep dive into Bob. Kasi parang ang hirap
That's a good point.
intindihin nung concept ng void if all you know is like parang just those like snippets na he was an addict, he did XYZ, diba parang
Right.
you kind of ask yourself like parang why is the void such a big part of who he is? So yun, kasi parang if you like read the comic about like the human century, it's really interesting na parang how in a way parang history kind of forgot about him even though he did like so many major things. So it would have been nice to see that, would have been nice to, for people to have seen that he has a wife or like, all those stuff na parang what
And he
makes
had a
him
full life.
him.
He had a
Yeah,
full
and then
life.
parang how big is the void for it to be an enemy or for him to need to, I guess, parang conceal that power that he has. So,
Well,
yun.
that is the advantage of the comic book version story. But
Yeah.
here, they're just kind of kicking him off. So it is a
It's just
different.
kasi, yeah, the movie felt like para lang siyang poster child. Like literal, when he like stepped down in his sentry costume, I was like, it's giving Homelander from the
Oh.
boys
It
vibes.
is. It does.
Diba? So parang would have been nice if you kind of understood his character better and yeah, kind of like how like honestly magandang comparison yung The Boys kasi diba like the series gave context to like why Homelander is like that, but gets ko naman din a time constraint whatever. So yeah, even just like a little bit maybe like I don't know Marvel like 5 minutes of backstory would have been great.
They
If anything,
they told his backstory, but they didn't show it. So I think maybe rather than like instead of
I will
talking
disagree.
about-
I think they did show the backstory. It was in the rooms.
In snippets.
In snippets.
Yeah.
if anything, the threat of the void and all that, I feel like they've set him up so that's something that can be re-explored in other movies. Because I feel like that's how they're going to make him continue to be relevant. Because I mean, if he can't use his
Yeah.
powers, then it's going to be like. So I think that's something that they've presented to a sufficient extent for where it is, like as an introductory film of sorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I understand the whole like the because I heard there's so much more to him like from the comics, so I kind of understand that. But I feel like that's true for almost every single superhero.
That's true. Everyone has a lot more. Well, not everyone, but most of the characters have a lot more depth to explore. So yun lang siguro that's the inherent downside to a visual medium is that some types of story beats are more difficult to explore in a movie rather than let's say a TV series or books
Yeah.
or whatever. So depende na lang dyan.
Si Vince kaya, anong iniisip ni Vince?
Pero lalim na inisip ko.
Kasi with everything that's happening, lumalabas yung inherent nga sabi ni John, lumalabas yung inherent weakness ng Marvel series. If you have not watched the series where Yelena was actually a major part of, and also yung ibang movies as well, you won't catch a lot. You'll miss a lot basically. Pero kasi at the same time, what I liked about Thunderbolts specifically is that you didn't have to watch the series to be able to appreciate for what it is. It could stand alone. However, at the same time kasi it's not as good if you're ano yung term? It could stand alone. That's clear. Pero at the same time kasi it's not as good as ano ba?
Kaya mo yun.
Maganda siya. Well, yeah, parang it could it could stand alone pero at the same time kasi for you to fully experience and enjoy the movie, you needed to have at least a bit of background on what the current storyline is in the Marvel universe.
To
There's-
maximize your enjoyment. Kumbaga.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, even if I said what I said, like, naiintindihan, appreciate ko pa rin yung movie. So, I'm just gonna agree with you there.
Kasi compared to some of the recent outings ng Marvel, when it comes to introducing the world, medyo they have fallen into the bad habit, well, di naman bad habit, yung bad practice of pag sinusundod-sundod mo yung series, if you're not following it, bumapasok tayo dun sa area na yung, this is the reason why comic books is hard to come in for new people. Kasi, ang dami mong mamimiss. Pero with the way that they did Thunderbolts, they actually reintroduced Bucky, they reintroduced Red Guardian, they reintroduced Walker din, kahit exposition siya and you have a sense of who they are ng kahit maiksi lang. Like yung description nila kay US Agent. Diba, US Agent, you're the budget Captain America. Si Red Guardian, failed Soviet super
Captain
soldier.
America.
No, failed super soldier serum kasi naging discussion point nila, what kind of super
What kind? Parang vaccination.
Diba? Ang sagot ni Maki, I got the hydra kind. The good kind.
The way you say, also now that you mention it, it feels like it's such irony that Red Guardian is now, part of the new Avengers of America.
Yeah. In that sense, it was good. To be fair though, nakatulog ako sa movie na to, pati sa Brave New World. Pero kasi, I think it's more of
Brave New World.
It's because of the chairs that and talagang pagod ako when
we got really comfy chairs. We got super
but what I wanted sana more is they would have kind of focused more on the conflict between the group versus Valentina. De Fontaine, whatever. Basta si Fontaine. Parang
Fontaine.
for me, si Ghost. For me, I think Ghost already got enough exposition dun sa Ant-Man.
Yeah, in Quantumania.
That's why
It's like her whole...
I didn't mind that dive too
deep. You didn't dive into that Kasi what are you gonna get? More missions, more assassinations. Dahan-dahan mo makikita mo yung morality ni Ghost is slowly deteriorating. It would have been interesting if they did it as a series rather than a movie.
Okay, that's true.
Then you have what's his face? Si Budget Captain America. He was good.
Walker, yeah.
He didn't have exposition. He's still an asshole. And that's coming from the series as well. So parang walang nabago. It's just that he did more missions. What I really like talaga yung what they did with Yelena, because she was basically the heart of the group, and yun yung naging focus to the point where they had to discuss yung some elements ng sometimes it doesn't have to be super villain, but rather yung internal conflict that's going to be the main focal point of a movie. I think that's one of the main reasons why people didn't like it, but at the same time, that's why I liked it kasi it discusses a lot of things, the nuances that you don't get in visual media right now. The conflict that you've seen in Thunderbolts can only be done properly in a comic book setting. Pero they were able to make it better. They were able to show it properly. Not saying the best, they were able to show it properly in audiovisual setting. And yun yung nagustuhan ko. Pero at the same time, without hitting your head, na this is about this is not just about beating superheroes, but your psyche, your inner demons, and your all that. And parang yun yung I think that's what I like most about it.
I agree that I like that they tackled it that way, but I disagree that there is no villain in the film because I mean Valentina is still a villain. And I would argue that like the reason why this issue of the psyche even really escalates is because of Valentina.
Yep.
And in a way that like yes, we may be our own like worst enemies, so on and so forth. Or like but at the same time, that's not entirely our fault. Like we are also victims of circumstance. And like our environments can largely shape how our psyche and our mental state is going to be. So that's why it's also important to surround yourself with the right people who will help you and support you through these kinds of times. Your environment really matters, and where you put the situation you put yourself into, and who you choose to listen to in your life, it matters a lot.
Yeah. For me lang medyo inisang tabi ko lang si Valentina kasi that's what they did with her. Inisang tabi lang pinili.
I honestly don't think that's what they did. In a way, it doesn't necessarily focus on conquering her, because I feel like that's going to be something that they're carrying on. Like instead of taking on too many big things that they're going to resolve all in one movie, they kind of planted a lot of little seeds that we now look forward to being explored in other movies.
Which I kind of agree.
And
Yeah.
without Valentina, they wouldn't even be the new Avengers.
It's one of those things na parang, I don't know, it's like the enemy is yourself, like in a more macro way, because they created this problem in a sense. They created the problem of Sentry, who was his own problem. So parang ano ba yan? And then there's I don't know, for me there's also the government angle of like self-interested
Parties,
yes.
But actually-
things up.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, that's it. Self-interested parties.
But if you
Screwing
think
things
about it, the government here, where I'm when I say refer to the government, I actually am not referring to Valentina, ha. I'm referring to yung faction ni Bucky and that what's that, a congressman or a judge? I forgot na. Basta yung
Congressman,
like the Supreme Court guy, the
Yes.
one who tells him to read the
Yeah.
packet.
Yeah, I think kasi diba, if you will listen to their conversation, I think this is a scene that they planted for the story later on down the line, that Valentina is someone in higher up in the government that cannot be trusted, and they're trying to impeach her nga, diba? So parang,
Director of the CIA, I think it was.
yes, she is the director of the CIA.
Yeah.
Despite her being an Italian Contessa, I don't know how that works.
Well, it's
So-
No, but I think the politics in that
Heritage
kasi has a
lang yun.
lot to do with Brave New World din eh. Kasi diba nga, parang the president turned into Red Hulk, so malamang like, there are a lot of questions on like, are there other people who are injecting super serum on themselves or whatever? Like, diba?
Actually, I feel nga that this is actually part of a bigger setup for Civil War 2, because that's another storyline
Is
in
it
the
in
comic
the,
books
The new
where,
phase?
huh?
Is it in the new phase? Like, did they?
It's not yet announced, pero kasi yung setup ng having a new Avengers and the faction of Bucky in the new
Right.
Avengers, and then there's a faction of Sam with who is going to have his own Avengers, feels like a setup for a Civil War 2.
Post.
Especially that it's going to be a question of government versus non-government agents.
oh my God.
Well, the next Avengers movie is called Secret Wars.
So,
So there is a war.
Civil War in the comic books, Civil War 2 is a precursor to Secret Wars, eh.
Secret War.
So,
I was gonna say I was surprised because I only now made the connection to Brave New World because I literally watched Brave New World before watching Thunderbolts, and I didn't see the connection until you mentioned it.
well,
so
actually fine.
I think one
Actually,
thing
I
that I
thought
would
that was
agree
gonna be-
talaga with Vince is
Yeah.
that this movie, what's nice about this movie, it does not assume that you've seen all the previous movies and TV shows and whatnot. So meron siyang, it actually tries to introduce you to the characters as if they are unknown to the audience, no, to a certain extent.
Relatively,
No?
yeah.
So they're giving you enough information that you know them, but it's not telling you the whole story. So if you really want to know, you can go and watch that. No, unlike some other shows na parang they don't tell you anything at all. Go watch the previous movie or previous series para maintindihan mo, which I
Except kay
appreciate.
Taskmaster.
Huh?
Except kay Taskmaster. I felt like it was like a lot of people didn't realize who it was until after the fact.
That's true.
Hindi, parang may pinapagawa ka.
Pero kasi the reason I'm bringing this up is that parang I think that was the failure nga of the failure of the Snyderverse na sa DC, where you had a lot of characters that are being introduced pero wala kang backstory and wala kang content on why they're being introduced. Parang people are just being assumed na alam mo na yung characters na to. Diba?
Yeah, that's how I felt about Suicide Squad. I was like, who are
It's
these?
like, and let's face it, if you're not reading the comic books and you don't watch cartoons, you might be familiar with Wonder Woman, but just by name, who she is, you don't know, diba? You might be familiar with
Why does she have powers?
Linda Carter, and that's it. Pero, unless you know the movies, unless you know the backstory, etc., nag-introduce ka ng characters na left and right na para wait, sino ba itong mga to? And I think that's the failure that's with a lot of Marvel movies then, is that they're introducing characters in movies na nobody knows and they're just expecting that you already know because you should have watched the previous movie or you should have watched the previous show. So I think dapat nga parang in every movie like merong refresher pa din na parang dumb down it to a point where the audience doesn't know these people. Who are they? Reintroduce them again, diba?
Yep.
Yeah, I think Marvel movies should follow the teleserye trope, yung merong ang nakaraan.
Unless, no, hindi naman kailangan, pero
Kasi
They did
honestly,
that.
like, yun nga.
They did
Because
that
I religiously watch
for
the movies,
For what?
right? I
They
do
did
like
that for the
follow
series
the
too.
content creators too. Na merong recap or like things to watch out for as you watch.
That's
Yes,
true. A
you-
lot of us do that nowadays because we're so
Yeah.
overwhelmed. We're so overwhelmed in content. I think that it's what happened again and stuff. But when you're in a movie, you can't do that as easily. So it's a
And the
skill.
refresher, just if it's been a while since like these characters have been in the like circuit, need a refresher.
yeah, I think the only time that you don't really need to do that if it's a direct sequel, like from Guardians 1 to Guardians 2. I don't think you need to reintroduce the characters, diba? Because supposed to be pinanood mo yung sequel talaga. That's really the prequel rather. Kasi that's the
But
I
I feel like the Guardians movie still gave you like some sort of a recap, like because in a lot of ways, because they haven't seen each other in a while. So when the characters meet up again, you kind of get a sense of
what you've been doing.
yeah, they're
ganyan.
like where have you been? What have you been up to? So we also get carried on to the like the backtrack since they're reconnecting. We're reconnecting along with them, which is nice.
Yeah, Guardians tends to have really good pacing compared to the average
Yeah.
MCU movie.
Pero yun parang because it served as a sequel, it doesn't require it as much. Diba? Parang it's a direct sequel. But if you're gonna let's say for example, ito yung problema ko sa Thor 4, no? Thor Ragnarok.
Yep. Alam ko na
Thor
naman
4 is
yung
Ragnarok?
Yeah, kasi third Thor 4 is Love and Thunder pala, I mean.
Yeah, I was gonna
So,
say
Love and
4 is
Thunder.
Love and Thunder, right?
So, Love and Thunder, if you watch Love and Thunder, it's not a direct sequel to to Ragnarok eh. So parang biglang pagpasok mo ng movie, who are all these characters? Diba? Parang dapat may reorientation ka muna, who are these characters? So how are they connected to where Thor is right now in this movie? So walang advice. Kaya parang ako, as someone who may not, if I did not watch the previous movies, I will be, parang this is jarring. Anong ginagawa ni Thor dito? Who are these people? Why is Thor traveling with them? Diba? So
Well,
Why are you
I actually thought Love and Thunder was okay in the intro part because it did recap like, oh, what I've been doing. And he had that
no,
kind of thing.
I get what you're saying, but pero what I'm saying is kasi hindi kasi siya direct sequel from Thor 3. So it really needed to build up that parang what's been happening. And while there is some mention and there is pero it feels like the recap here is really just parang hindi siya ganun ka-substantial, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Unlike like if you were coming from Thor 3, the Thor 3 kasi Ragnarok, you kind of understand where he is coming from, and I would say Ragnarok was one of the best of the Thor movies.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it's the better Thor movie.
So parang naiintindihan mo where is Thor, what is going on. Medyo meron kang understanding of all of these storylines eh.
Circling back.
No, I was gonna. My answer to that was just more like, if anything, my problem with Thor 4 was more like, it felt to me more like a Guardians movie than a
Thor movie,
like,
exactly.
Thematic wise,
Yeah.
so I was like, am I watching a Thor movie or a Guardians movie? The branding to me was just off, so I couldn't appreciate it the same way. I wouldn't call it the same category.
Having said that,
Well,
circling back.
With Thunderbolts kasi, yun nga, ensemble movie din siya. So,
But I
know.
think it's
I mean-
because everybody's it's a new ensemble. So parang it worked well to introduce your characters na ito yung mga characters mo, ito yung nangyayari ngayon. This is the current state of the world, no? Parang merong kahit papaano we are being introduced to storytelling, and I do kind of like that the narrator was from the POV of Yelena, na parang merong hindi siya parang forced na parang they're gonna talk about it exposition wise. And
they did a good job of like showing instead of telling. And despite the faults, which we've kind of gone through, that like a lot of the pain points of the movie are like signifiers, are like common to a lot of ensemble films, they were able to excel in the parts that define, I guess, an ensemble film, and like they were able to kind of reintroduce characters in a way that has us interested. They were able to open doors to possible problems, or to possible problems that they could then expound on in coming films. So it's enough that we have opened the doors to more possibilities that have piqued the interest of people, which is kind of the general goal of an ensemble film.
well, yeah, connecting film din kasi yung Thunderbolts. Like it's a film that's really intended to be. It suffers also from the what you call it, yung middle of a trilogy kind of thing,
Exactly.
right? Which a lot of movies are struggling with, because since all of the movies now are like some are interconnected, you lose a bit of the tightness ng storytelling. But given that it had to deal with that, I still think it was okay.
I was gonna say I can understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like in purpose, it acted more like an introductory film. Like it wanted
Yeah,
to
it's like
connect
it's
from
like a
existing. Like it
what
felt
you
more
call
like
it?
Fellowship than Two Towers. If you,
Yeah,
because like, you get kind of like
I'm trying to come up with the word, but it's like ayun, entry point. Para siyang it's like one of your entry points into the current phase.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
compared to some of the other movies.
I think I had this thought earlier when Vince was speaking, and I didn't know how to insert it anymore. But it was more like, right. It watching it felt like watching the new, like what's it called, like new trilogy of Star Wars, where it was like, if you had experience in Star Wars before, then there would be so much more meaning to certain things. But at the same time, it's not like a necessity. You can understand it as it is. But like, not knowing who Princess Leia is will obviously mean her introduction to you is different.
Yeah.
Doesn't have as much context to it.
I think,
Well,
yeah.
yes, again, John, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think with this movie in particular, Thunderbolts, and I think it does deserve the moniker of its new title, New Avengers.
Right.
It's because if you think really hard about it, it feels like an Avengers movie. The first Avengers, na medyo light. No, parang we have been introduced to these characters before in the past. What for whatever reason or another, we actually know their backstory, and now they're coming together in one movie, and now we're seeing their dynamic as a team. Which at first parang, are they a team? Are they not a team? Parang ganon. Tapos, of course, if you ask Red Guardian, they have always been a team. But you get
Yeah,
what I
he's
mean.
fun.
Kasi that's the same issue that they had with ano, 'di ba? In the first Avengers movies, like, are they really a team? Are they not a team? Parang ganon. They were acting individually as ano, different heroes or different ano, parang they had, yeah, they have aligned agendas, but they don't necessarily align together now with a purpose, 'di ba? And then by the end of the movie, here you are in New York, aligned as one team.
Which they
So
actually made
when
a
you think
point of.
about it, that's
New
how
York
what
again.
happened with the Thunderbolts. They are here. We are in New York. Now we're one team.
Yeah. They actually, it's a bit meta, which they made reference to, diba? They're like, why is it always New York?
'Di ba?
Mm-mm. So,
And saka ano, it's the first time that you will see that, you know, people like they were coming together to help each other. You know, when things were falling down and when things were blowing up, no? Like for example, parang Bucky suddenly standing in front of ano, of a flipping car na parang ano to protect the couple. Parang suddenly ito sumasalot sila ng mga falling ano. So you can see that they were starting
yeah.
to come together as a team because they're built that way. Parang ganun yung ano parang story na parang they might have different personalities but they're built to ano, parang they're designed to save people, parang ganun.
Hmm.
Or their purpose is to save people.
Well, some of them, anyway. Some of them had to learn, but, you know. So, how do we, what can we take away from this? Like the actual characters. It's like, okay, we have all sorts of things of like commentary about the stories, but one of the main drives of ours of the Finding God series is there anything to find here? Something that we can take away with us?
Is God in
Meron, syempre.
God in the story?
Not even literally is God in the story, but like yung mga values natin, yung mga life practical and meaningful life thoughts or something.
Mauna na ako with that kasi parang Thunderbolts kinda emphasized yung na don't be alone.
It does,
Yeah.
though.
And I think that's one of the more that's one of the least what's the term? The least uh yung basta yung it gives us na hindi talaga yung akala natin hindi importante in our walk. But it's one of the more important aspects of our walk that we tend to overlook. Yun, there we go. That's one of the more that's one of the more obvious na overlooked practices that we don't put emphasis on. Ang daming
Yeah, that's true.
ang daming nadudulas na Christians that try to do it alone.
Mm.
Sounds
I
familiar.
like that.
Ang daming nadudulas na
Yeah.
Christians that don't do it alone, and I'm speaking it from my experience. So parang I think that's one of the more kasi ano yan balance between alone with the Lord but also at the same time with fellow Christians. So parang
Mm.
while you surround yourself with fellow Christians, also at the same time you go to the world but you also anchor yourself with Christ. So yun yung parang yun yung practice, yung trinity of our practice that we tend to and we overlook the most is yung being alone. And I think that's one of the bigger problems currently what we have. Lalo na dun sa mga hindi sanay either mag-share, or kumonek, or those who try to do it on their own. I did it before na I tried to do it on my own and a lot of things happened. So parang so parang So parang I think it's one of the more important practices that we overlooked. And it's a good example that was emphasized in Thunderbolts. That sometimes you don't see yourself as a failure if you're with other people. Because you have other people to help you, help prop you up when you're down. Yun.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the most obvious one, no? Yung, how do you call it?
With
Community?
No, no, yeah, and then the community and be with someone, have the right friends kind of angle. That is one of the most obvious things we can see from the movie. So talagang ano siya eh. And it's the right kind of people. Kasi example, si um well,
Valentina?
Valentina represents the not right kind of people, right?
Mm.
So controlling and just out for her own agenda. Whereas the others were more like, hey, we're trying to find a greater purpose or a healthy direction to contribute to something with our lives. And that's when they reinforce like, hey, you know what, you too, you also can be that kind of person. Yung kay Sentry, like you can use your powers for good stuff.
Mm.
And it seems very simple, but it's actually hard to do, di ba? Kasi the easier thinking is that no, we have to control we have to control everything. Diba? Everything has to be under our control, which is the angle of Valentina, diba? She has a very yung trauma response niya is to control the world eh.
Mhm.
And if it's something that is not within her, how do you put it? Not
Purview.
within her views, mahirap. Pero that's a good thing to learn eh. Kasi sa kanila, the heroes needed to learn and accept points of views that were not their own and to find a way to integrate that. Whereas Valentino was just like, I just want to control the narrative. It's my way, or I'll blow your brains out.
Away.
Basically, right? It's either you listen to me or you're dead. Which is unfortunately all too common, growing all too common in the current, how to put it, current societies. Diba? Parang, it's very polar. Yung tipong, kung wala ka sa side ko, wala. You don't follow my exact same thinking pattern. It's like, why should everyone have the same thinking pattern anyway? We're different people.
Yeah. Actually, John, I like that you said we're different people because literally I just typed it. Because parang for me naman, my takeaway is everyone is different, but we're all the same in wanting to find purpose. Because I feel like the movie also emphasized a lot on, parang asking yourself like what am I living for?
Mm.
Right. And I think, maybe for all of us here, right, before we came to know Jesus, we fell into our own voids, trying to
Right.
figure out what exactly our purpose is. And
Or
ayun,
just filling your life
parang,
with whatever.
Mhm.
yeah, exactly. Na parang you're chasing after what the next high or whatever fills that need in your heart. Yung parang they say nga in church, diba? Everyone has a God-shaped vacuum in their heart. So, yeah, parang I love that they showed it kasi it's so real, not just like parang secularly, but even spiritually. Kasi like even if you're a Christian, you can still fall into that void and think na parang what is this all for, whatever. So yeah, like purpose is also a big thing, and it's really it helps community helps in leading us to what that
Purpose
is
is.
or what that could be. Yeah.
I think to
And I really,
go on.
oh,
Sige.
sorry.
Go on, go on.
I was gonna say, I really like how you can take that phrase of like finding Christ in community or finding God in community in many different aspects, especially in the film. Because I was brought back to like as Marvel said about uh that like you find purpose together, but then and then like what Vince also said about how like when if you surround yourself by like good people or people who you resonate with, then you find that sense of community that can help you find God. But at the same time, I also think that the whole idea of like where two or three are gathered in my presence, there I am with them, or it can also be shown in like how you can be a better person by being a how do you put this? It's not just who you are as individuals resonating with each other, but who you become in towards these people. Because sometimes like say for example, like in the start of the film, Yelena was talking about how like that emptiness in her life, right? But it's like Bob being lost pushed her to kind of like help him, so to speak. So it's like being in the presence of certain people that like might be calling you to then become a person that is better than who you once were. So it's
Yeah.
also it's like it's not just like a togetherness. Sometimes it's like uh how do you
Well,
put this? It's like
okay, so I have a thought that
becomingness, I
might
guess.
I got a
Like a
thought that
growth,
might
I
connect to
guess.
that. It's the Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Now, how does that work? If you're all vibes or all the same, conflict happens less frequently because you're the same. There's a difference in that. Okay, at the very heart, you love something, but you're different people. The differences in each other is actually opportunity for growth. They're opportunity for conflict, opportunity for misunderstanding, but flip side is that's opportunity to grow as people. Why? Because the difference between each other, it expands our hearts. Like you have to make the choice to, do I learn how to communicate better? Do I learn how to be more patient? Do I learn how to develop more, basically more social skills, more compassion for other kinds of people who are not me? So that's why iron sharpens iron. And that's sort of a very practical thing. When you're trying to sharpen a knife, you don't use a smooth object because nothing's gonna happen. You use a appropriately rough object, yung whetstone.
Liha.
Yes,
Mm.
it's a liha or pang whetstone, and it removes the imperfections on the metal. But that can't happen if you just use a simply smooth object. There's a certain degree of roughness on the sharpening object that sharpens one another. And so that's what it
Mm.
is basically. So you're supposed to be in community, but what some people don't say is that, okay, now that in your community, and yes, we do love one another, we do support one another, we do care for one another, but as we grow, expect there to be sparks, not romantic sparks, sparks of conflict. Like when you start butting heads, when you start rubbing each other wrong, because you're just different people. And
Yeah.
the Void had a Void. Yelena and all of the other characters, they all had a lot of rough spots. Diba? Walker was, ano yung term nila?
And
He's
also,
a jerk, right?
Project Captain America.
Budget Captain America had so many issues. They all had issues, and they all were rubbing each other wrong in various ways. But
Mm.
they had to come together. They had to learn how to come together to work through things. Of course, it's a movie, so it's kind of like it's a superhero movie at that. So the work on things is very, dramatic. For us in reality, the changes are not probably going to be as quick or dramatic, but there has to be growth and change for us to not exactly accommodate one another, but to develop the ability to
Mm-hmm.
accept and care for one another, and not just tolerate or just say like, okay, I'll just bahala ka na. But it's like it's even more intense because you're trying to push each other and temper each other for positive things, right? You wanna
Mm-hmm.
help each other grow because it's easy to
Yeah.
just get along with someone if you're not gonna push each other, if you're not pushing on each other. Like this guy has bad habits, I have bad habits, and we're just gonna be like, ganun lang siya. That's just the way he is. Don't bother him.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that,
In
like
the
in some,
context of
right?
yeah, like in the context of sharpening iron, right? It goes through fire. And I think parang that's exactly what John's saying. Like it's relationships that are like tested through fire, except you go in it together. Na parang you're ano ba tawag doon? Yung ginagawa. Sorry guys.
Inaano?
But diba, parang yung hinihit mo, diba, pinasok ka sa ako,
Tempering.
tapos
You're
hinihit.
tempering, yeah.
So parang,
You're tempering,
yeah,
yeah.
I get it. Na
I-
in our relationships, it's not always gonna be a walk in the park, Sometimes we need that, ano ba, like butting of heads to change, but like it's like a mutual change na parang okay, like
Mm.
I've been doing this wrong and the other person maybe realizes they've been doing something wrong and you both change so that your relationship can work out.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
just to add then, I think in terms of community, um, tama si John that we can't just be a community of people na super like-minded individual na no one's challenging each other.
Mm.
Parang you will enter a place of complacency and a place where, truth be told, sabi nga ng Bible, no, what do you call this? Bad morals can corrupt good character. So even if you have a good character, good intentions, if you're surrounded by people who don't really have, parang good intentions, good morals, makokorrupt ka din. So there's also that idea that the people that you surround yourself with, the community that you should, are people that are striving towards a common good. No? And I think we can see that in the film na to a certain extent everyone is striving to whether they admit it or not, parang striving towards a common good, no? Parang I don't want to be the same way anymore. I want to do something more meaningful and more purposeful in life. Lalo na si Red Guardian, sobrang clear sa kanya yung importance na, yeah, we have to be in a group. We have to be ganyan-ganyan, no?
And that's good for because
Yeah.
different people have different personalities.
Yes.
Some people know from the get go na this is how we are. He's the vanilla
Yes.
character. He's the warm, fuzzy good guy, hopeful dude.
Yeah. So,
Whereas
and
the rest are not.
so the Bible actually says nga na in Hebrews 10:24 to 25 that, parang we should, should consider how we spur on one another and towards love and good deeds. Sabi pa nga niya, not giving up meeting together as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another. Even the Bible says that we are built for communities. We are not built to be
Yes.
doing things alone. And ang purpose ng community, ang purpose ng being in a community, like level up game na. Plug lang.
Ayaw.
Is,
So true.
to stir up one another towards love and good deeds, to encourage one another. The Bible actually talks about one another verses so many times that because we are to do things together, we are to parang strive for goodness, strive towards love together. No? That's where the community, and then I think the movie does actually point that out, and I think and I wanted to touch a bit din sa sinabi ni Vel kanina na purpose, no? And I think sabi nga I was reading something recently na parang in the movie all of these characters have all these superpowers or parang they all have skills and abilities and whatnot. Pero they were purposeless. Aimless sila. Wala silang direction. Parang, and I think, this group brought them together. Nagkaroon sila ng purpose, no? Parang, suddenly, they found themselves, oh, we have to protect the people. Oh, we have to, to do the right thing. We have to save others. And I think that's really one of the things that we can see here, that, without purpose, especially when we're alone, when there is, life can be meaningless. Yelena was feeling na parang life niya is meaningless and she's racked full of guilt. And who can who can save her from that? But rather than, parang the first step is to understand what her purpose is, no? What their purpose is. And although there is no God in the movie, we all know that we start to understand our purpose when we start to understand our relationship with the Lord. When we ourselves are parang in a relationship with the Lord, where the Lord knows that all things that we have done can be forgiven, and all things that we continue to do will eventually be for Him, diba? So parang ang ganda lang ng, I guess I would say there is hindi sa symbolism but rather parallelism between their purposelessness and then coming together as a community, finding that common purpose, common good that they know that each other has, no? And again, we won't find that out on our own, no? On my own, no? Standing here.
Wrong direction, sir.
So, parang tama talaga si Vince na sometimes when we as individuals, we try to do it on our own, thinking that kaya natin to mag-isa. And but actually, as in my own experience, God has pointed to me several times na I brought people to you so that you can do it together, not so that you can do it alone. Because when you do it alone, yes, I can support you, but there is an extent to your ability. Meaning ako, there's an extent to my ability, there's an extent to my skill, and that's where others come in to, parang close the gap, so to speak.
Well, that's true.
Other themes, yes. That being said, actually meron pa akong ibang na ideas, pero I wanna hear from the others.
Well, I don't know. I think for me, yun yung parang main drive ko lang na. Para I just wanted to shed another level to the community angle or the friendship angle. Yung friendship, ano yun?
Community?
Nag-joke nga na friendship is, or ano yun?
Ohana means family. Ay, sorry.
Ay, wrong movie.
Although it's not wrong.
Although it's not wrong, yes.
It's not wrong.
Sorry.
Oo. Hindi ko maalala eh. Pero yung friendship is the answer kind of meme energy. Yes.
I was gonna say there's also an angle to it as like forgiveness, because you see that a lot of these characters, as they come into the movie, they came from like they were basically criminals to some extent, right? So they came from a path where they thought they were beyond redemption.
Yes.
But just as our Lord Jesus Christ has shown us, the film also shows them that you are never beyond redemption.
Yes.
Like you just need to come to a point where you fully understand that you give yourself up to change, that you are willing to change your ways and to start over, and that you basically all you need to do is to get that courage and that bravery to really begin and find yourself there. Like they were really redeemed. Well, yeah, they were really on the path of redemption now when the film started. Like they turning over a new leaf.
So I read this, basahin ko lang. Sabi niya, parang the Thunderbolts are sent on mission sometimes by people more corrupt than they, and they're used as tools. So the question becomes, there really redemption for them? Because at one point or another, all of them, diba, want redemption. And I think there is the movie does represent redemption there. And though again we go back that there's no God in this movie. Well, there are gods, but I mean not the one true God.
Yes.
The question is, can they truly be redeemed? No. And I think although God is not presented in this movie, yes, there is true redemption because we can see na parang yes, their actions have led them to this path where they are right now. A lot of them have baggages and they have ano parang they still know that what they did is wrong. Actually, that's something that I really like is that even sinners, even the worst of sinners, a lot of more often than not, they know that they are sinning. They know that they're making mistakes, but they just don't see a path forward from it. And I think that's in this movie, parang nakita nila, suddenly there is hope. Suddenly there's light. There is a path forward from where they are, and no, parang and they've started to learn to forgive each other. I forgive themselves because others are starting to forgive them. Parang ganun yung nakikita ko. And but at the end of the day, the true forgiveness can really only come from the Lord, diba? Come from God. And I think for me, it's the same thing where when I understood true forgiveness from the Lord, that's when I could start forgiving myself for the things that I've done in the past, for the things that made me angry at myself. No, parang it allowed me to love myself because I know God loves me. Parang ganon. And in a sense, that's really what they're looking for. To be loved, get past their insecurities, to get past the guilt that they're experiencing, and to be loved and to be forgiven. And I think the theme is in that ano na parang that even people around the world are starting to look at them in a different light. They're in that path of redemption.
Yep. And actually, to connect to that, when you're introducing earlier that some people might be arguing that they're tools, so is there really redemption for them? But I feel like at the end of the film, they were kind of able to take back the control. Yes, they were used by people around them, but diba, like Yelena was telling Valentina that we own you now. So it's more like even if she was, for example, one of those people who used them as tools, they've taken back their agency. To some extent, they're like, we have realized that we hold power to create our own destiny, to make decisions for ourselves. So we are not going to be used by you anymore. And in that case, that's also like a sense of redemption in that regard.
Yeah,
And I think their desire to actually be recognized at the end of the movie, that their desire to actually be recognized as a legit team of superheroes, it shows that parang shows to them na parang I guess we have a long way to go, but I know that we can do some good. We as a group can do some.
Yeah, parang yeah, tama naman. Agency, like they've chosen to not just be led by the nose, like just take orders, but to they had to learn how to step up and mature as people, na hindi lang parating okay, sunod lang ng sunod, without thinking.
Sunod.
Yeah, just follow without thinking. So in this case, it's really more of like, okay, they analyze like why we're doing things, and what gives them meaning. They examine it more deeply.
Naisip ko nga kasi parang some people said that there was a lot of deep dive into mental health, which I can see that. But but it really is parang at the core of it, it's not just about mental health. It's really about diba, guilt and shame and parang brokenness. That feeling of brokenness and finding parang hope in the midst of their brokenness, no? In the midst of their guilt and their shame. In fact, when I think about when I was listening to Yelena, sabi ko nga, oh, she has the classic signs of depression. But if you look deeper, see that she feels very empty because she cannot find the way out of the guilt that she has experienced, and it's actually in a sense, very similar to how si Black Widow was feeling, 'di ba? Parang at the start of the Avengers movie, she talked about that. And parang they're sisters talaga. When you think about they're sisters talaga. Pareho yung nila, yung shame and guilt that they experience. And parang it's really moving forward from that. By the end of the movie, you can see na parang I may have guilt and shame, but parang I know who I am. Yung sabi mo nga, Eri, they've taken back their agency. Na parang I have control of my life now. And I think that they've found hope na parang beyond that guilt and shame. And then if we look at the Christian context, there is only one that can take away guilt and shame, no? And it's God, diba? Parang because we have to understand, I think in the Bible it says, not that I think, the Bible does say all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. As Vince would often say, no one is good, not even one, diba? Parang no one is righteous, not all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. And yet, parang parang God takes away that shame, takes away that guilt when we come to Him. I think that's where parang because the shame and guilt is being taken away, it's being replaced by a community that will help and support each other.
Yep. I have nothing to add, Your Honor.
Closing statements.
We will convene at the joke lang.
But I think, diba, when you think about it, are they perfect? No, they're not. No one's perfect, diba nga?
Even at the end of the movie, alam nila eh.
Except si Bucky daw. So, sa, ng friend natin.
Akala ko sabihin mo except si Pedro Pascal.
I'm not there.
Nandun na siya.
We'll see what he's like in the next movie, which is another good entry point. The Fantastic Four one seems to be another good entry point.
I like the fact that it's not
goes.
an origin film, but at the same time, the setup is going to introduce us to these characters, who they are.
It's semi-origin.
I hope it's not going to be confusing because they're doing time skipping, right? So I hope that.
I don't think they're.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna do flashbacks. I think that's what they're
yeah.
planning to do, rather than time skipping.
Well, but that
Isn't a flashback just a time
podcast for
skip
another day.
to the past? That's how I see it.
I guess when you say
find
time skip, sa mind is parang it's this time, and then they will jump into another.
Yeah. But basically, it's like we're in the future or present, and then they flash forward, whatever.
But ano rin kasi,
Multiverse.
they are in an alternate universe, so we you don't know that the past that is being presented there is actually the future then. The present.
And I would like
exactly.
to say we can
It feels
reserve
like there's
this.
it feels like there's time mechanics. I hope that it will be
This
easy
is
to
slated in the calendar. So
Like we can see that there's a lot of
Interest.
excitement to talk about First Family. So do join us for the
Yeah.
First Family podcast, which is gonna be coming up in
soon.
Yes.
Soon. The more important announcement is that this Friday we're gonna
Yes.
have an IRL game night called Nice Baby.
Yes, so
Nice
we're having
Divine
an
Cafe in
IRL.
Makati.
We are having an IRL game night. So see all of these board games. They may or may not be there. So we're gonna spend a
We
night
have
of
a logbook.
games and get to know each other, have fun, eat some food. Because we're going to be at Ark and Vine Cafe by
Play some
our
game.
by our event host, but not sponsor. Please pay for the food. Our event
Please
host.
support.
Guys, maya naman kayo. Please favor them.
Please pay for your orders.
Please
Yes.
pay. So that's at Ark and Vine Cafe on what's the name of the road? I keep forgetting.
Ponte Corner,
Ponte.
Zapote Road.
Ponte
Makati
Corner,
City. So,
Zapote Road.
yeah. You can
So-
pin circuit and then just walk.
Or actually, I think it's on ano naman. It's
Or
on
just pin direct. Yeah.
Grab
It's there
Ark
too.
and Vine
Angkas,
Cafe.
Grab. Move It, Joyride, lahat.
Lala move. Joke, nilala move yung sarili. so, so yeah. So join us for that game there. We'll be having fun. We'll even have the boss man himself from Wow. Wow.
Fireworks. And not a special feature, but okay, thank you.
Fireworks.
So we'll have the boss man himself all the way from Davao. Wow, special guest.
Ew.
So yeah.
Bring your dice. Your die?
Your dice.
Kasi nga dice baby guys. So kailangan
Bring your dice,
We'll
even if
be
it's this big. Even if it's as big as a head.
We'll be playing dice games and dice-related gaming.
Yeah, tapos may prize pag naka-anim na joke lang.
That is a different dice game, but maybe we'll also have one of those.
For not a game he taught me called Ghetto Dice.
What?
We can talk about it on Friday.
Ghetto dice. So yeah, and since we've been talking about community, I think that's something that we wanna reiterate. We here at Level Up have a community. You're so much welcome to. Someone will post a link to our Discord server. Hello, yes. I will ask our friends to post it in the comment section. So join our Discord server. We also have a community page, and we have a group chat on the community. Join us there. Talk about random stuff that's related to games and geeks and whatnot. We even talk about cats, like cat over here.
It's so random, but that is also true.
All right. So,
We have
any
a lot of
final thoughts,
memes.
guys, before we go?
Play more games.
Whew. Play board games. We'll see you on Friday.
Yes, play board games.
Or online. We are in various gaming things. Find us on Discord.
Sometimes we even watch
Join the
movies together.
community.
Join the community.
Go.
And if you need
My
a
brain
safe
just
face.
said Thunderbolts, Thunderbolts, Thunderbolts.
And that works. I will let it pass.
Speaking of Thunderbolts, have this.
Oh, that was from our trip to
Ren Fair.
Run
the
fair.
Ren Fair.
So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And see you on the flip side.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Johnny.
Yasumi.
See you soon.